everyone, welcome back to Grounded Haven. My name is Michelle and today I'm going to be giving you a tour of our vegetable garden in May. If you're new around here, we're located in Virginia, Zone 7A. It is mid-May right now and our last frost date was about 1 month ago, so we are well into the gardening season and I'm going to be doing these garden tour videos once a month. So if you missed last month's video of our April garden tour, I'll link that at the end of this video and also in the description box if you want to check that out, because today it's going to look very different from last month, and from here on out I think every month is going to show some big changes in the garden. So follow along if you want to see how our garden does this year. At this point in the year, I think pretty much the entire garden has been planted out, so we've got something going on in pretty much every single bed. Some things are still a little bit smaller, but there's lots to show you, so I'm going to get right into it. So here is a look at the garden right now. It is really filling out, and as usual I'm going to be starting in the front area that has our raised beds, and later on we're going to go to the back area which has all of our in-ground beds. Starting in this bed on the left here, this bed is pretty much beets and cucumbers. The beets have grown a lot since last time. Last time they were just tiny little seedlings, and now they are starting to form their bulbs. So here you can see the beginnings of our golden beets. And on the other side I have some cylindrical red beets, and you can see that they're forming here. I multi-sowed these beets, so you can see there's a big cluster of them, and I'm just going to harvest the larger ones, let the smaller ones grow, and then harvest those later on to kind of like stagger the plantings and to get more beets out of the same amount of space. Last time the cucumbers had not germinated yet, but now they have, and I have a variety of cucumbers here. I think I have a couple of suyo long, I have some smaller pickling cucumbers, and also just some slicing cucumbers. I kind of just did like one or two of each of them, and they're going to be climbing up this trellis that we have over here. I've got a lot of cardboard down here because we're going to add mulch to this at some point to try and keep the weeds down in our pathways. And then in the next bed we have our soft neck garlic. The stalks are just getting so thick. Our soft neck garlic we usually don't harvest until I think like July or August, so it's got quite a ways to go. You can see the foliage is still looking pretty green, just the first leaf is starting to get a little bit yellow, but otherwise they're just looking really nice and big. On the other side I have planted my shallots, and those have also grown a lot, and they're finally starting to look like more than just little tiny blades of grass. They're actually getting like a thicker stalk in the middle. Those are looking really nice. And then last time I had also seeded some edamame down the middle of this bed as well, where I had a little bit of extra space in between the garlic and the shallots, and last time they had not come up, but they're all up now and looking really good. I'm growing 2 edamame varieties this year, so this is just one of them, and then I'll have some more in another area, but I'm happy to see those are up. I did have some of them not germinate in this area, so I've gone in and seeded some other seeds to try and fill it in. In the next bed I have some of my determinate tomatoes. I have 2 celebrity tomatoes here, and then 2 BHN 1021 on the other side here. I still have to get some like tomato cages for these front tomatoes, and for the back ones I'm probably just going to try and tie them to the arched cattle panel trellis behind. And then I have also interplanted some basil plants in between. This one is not looking too hot, but I think it will bounce back just fine. I've also got a really big red sorrel plant. Those guys are just going crazy, and I've been using those in my green smoothies, and they're really nice for that. And then I've got a single pea plant that germinated here, or maybe there's 2 plants, and these are starting to flower, but I'm really confused about these seeds that I got because they're supposed to be a tall English style pea, and they're only like 2 or 3 feet tall, and they're starting to flower, and they just are not very tall. So yeah, I don't really know what's going on there, but we'll see what kind of peas we get, I guess. You can see that there's a little baby pea forming from that flower now. Then in the last bed on this side, I have my area of leeks. I also have some volunteer cilantro that is doing really well, so I have left that in there. This is not going to grow for too long before it has to come out anyway, so I'm just letting that grow, and the leeks are looking pretty nice. Still a little bit on the small side, but some of these are definitely starting to get thicker. You can see those leaves are thicker as well, so you can actually see the shape of them now. And then on the other side, I had a bunch of radishes here, but we've pretty much harvested all of our radishes for the spring. Behind that, I do have some carrots that are coming up now. So those are growing. And I also have some dill as well here. And then I sowed a winter squash in the corner here that has just germinated. So I'm gonna let that grow and let it kind of like vine out of the bed here and let it take up as much space as it wants. I like growing the winter squash on the edge of the bed because as they vine out all around the bed, they kind of smother the weeds around the beds, which is really nice. So now I'm going to continue backwards from this side on the other side of the raised bed garden. In this bed I have more leeks. This is another variety and those are pretty much doing the same as the ones on the other side. You can see I have another big red sorrel plant over here. I have cleared out all of the radishes in this area and I'm just noticing I did transplant some Armenian cucumbers here, but it looks like they're completely gone. Like there is no trace of them. So I'm gonna have to direct sow those and hopefully I can get them to grow. I couldn't get them to grow last year either. I'm not sure why, but I really want them to grow on this arch trellis I have, so I'm gonna have to re-sow those. And here's a look at the cilantro bush that I have been letting go to seed. It is so tall and beautiful. Cilantro flowers are just so pretty. They kind of just look like a dainty little wildflower, and the way they like sway in the wind is so nice. So I'm really happy that I let this go to seed. I'm doing it to save the seeds to grow more cilantro, but also it's just really pretty as a flower. It just fills in this space really nicely, especially this time of year when we don't have a lot of flowers. I've just been really enjoying this. The next bed is looking just absolutely awesome with our potatoes. They are just so big and lush. And we tried to grow potatoes in containers last year and it did not really work for us, but it's really looking like the raised bed is doing really well so far. I have gone in and just topped off with some more soil on top of the plants just to bury them a little more. But I think at this point I'm kind of just gonna let them grow until it's time to harvest. So far it's not looking like we have any pest damage on them, which is good. We do usually like in early summer we get potato bugs, but I'm not seeing those yet, which is really good because those are probably like some of the grossest bugs I've seen, the larvae at least. So I'm glad they're not there. In the next bed we have our hardneck garlic and we have started harvesting the scapes off of those. You can see that there are some scapes over here, and in a couple of days I'm gonna probably come through and do another harvest of the scapes, which is always a fun little bonus. But the garlic is looking really good. You can see at the base how it's just a little bit further along than the soft neck garlic. For the soft neck garlic, the bottom leaf was only just starting to yellow, but you can see on these plants the bottom leaf has already like shriveled up and died, and usually you can use that as an indicator of like how far along your plants are and when it's going to be about time to harvest. You can see that this leaf has died off, this one is yellow and is almost shriveled up. So that's always a good thing to look for if you're not sure when to harvest your garlic. Usually by the time the third leaf is kind of like shriveling up, that's usually a good time to harvest. Also for hardneck garlic, you can usually tell once they start developing the scapes. Usually like 2 weeks after that, it'll be time to harvest the garlic. So that's coming up really soon for those, which is exciting. And now we're back to the front, and in this last bed on this side, this is like my spring greens bed. So it's looking really nice since we're like at the end of spring now. All this stuff has been in here for a while. I have lots of kale over here, 2 different varieties. I really love this dazzling blue kale. I love the shape of this kale. It's like dinosaur or lacinato kale, and just the color is so gorgeous with those purple stems. Definitely a winner. I couldn't really get it to grow last year, but this spring it's looking really good, and we've been eating lots of kale. I've also done a couple of big harvests and have preserved the kale by blanching and freezing, so that's really awesome. In the middle of the bed here, I had a big patch of bok choy, which I harvested all of. So since I had an empty space, I popped in some more of my determinate tomatoes, and I just have 2 of them here, and I put tomato cages for them. For determinate tomatoes, tomato cages I find work really well because the plants don't get too tall. These wouldn't really work if you have a very tall tomato plant that can get like 7 feet tall, but these ones pretty much only get to like 4 feet. So the tomato cages work really well for them. And then on the other side of the bed, I have some kohlrabi, which is starting to form the bulbs here. That's looking great. I also have a cabbage plant, but it's not looking that big yet. Wow, somebody's gotta come out here and do some weeding. And then at the very end, I have some Chinese broccoli, and I've been trying to grow this for quite a while, and I just don't know that I'm very happy with growing this. Maybe it's the variety, but we tried some the other day and the stems were very like tough and fibrous. I just feel like they don't really look the same as when I buy them from the supermarket. So yeah, I don't know, maybe it's just the variety, maybe I'll have to try a different one, but I'm not that thrilled with these. The leaves are still really tasty, but they kind of just taste like broccoli greens to me. So I don't know, if I wanted to eat broccoli green leaves, I would just eat the leaves off of my broccoli plants. But for Chinese broccoli, I feel like the stem is usually like my favorite part, and these stems just are not that tender and good. So yeah, that's disappointing, but it's fine. We'll just like eat what we can off of those. In this middle area, we have 2 beds with strawberries and blueberries. And then in the middle, we have a green stalk. And to be really honest, I just don't know how I feel about this green stalk. This is my 2nd year trying it out, and I feel like I just can't really get things to grow in this the way other people do. I don't know if it's just me, but these lettuce plants I transplanted like over a month ago, and I just feel like they have not grown as much as I would have hoped they would grow. Like, I feel like if these were planted in my raised beds, I would have already harvested so much from them. I mean, I'm saying that because I did have lettuce in this raised bed that got so much bigger. I just feel like nothing ever grows in this thing for me, and I've amended with compost, worm castings, I put fish fertilizer in the water when I water it up top, and I just feel like everything just stays the same size always in this thing. So I don't know if it's just me, but I kind of regret buying this. So yeah, I'm just having a little bit of a like de-influencing moment here. Yeah, if you have any experience, success, failures, please let me know your experiences, because I'm just not sure how I feel about this. But right next to that, we do have some blueberries forming on one of our blueberry bushes, which is really, really fun to see. When they start ripening, I am going to have to cover them this year, because last year the birds ate all our blueberries, and I would really like to get at least some, because I think blueberries are like my favorite fruit. And it would be really cool if we could actually eat some of the blueberries that we grow. But this plant is just covered in berries. It's looking really good. We've got some stuff going on to the side of the garden here where we have this long bed. On this trellis, you can probably see there are lots of peas growing here. They've gotten so tall. They're like probably about 5 feet tall now. And they're starting to flower and form some little baby peas. These are snow peas, and you can see these are like the first peas. We have not harvested any to eat yet. There's another one back here growing, and the flowers are just so pretty. I feel like it's a little bit late for peas this year. I feel like we're usually harvesting by now. Maybe I'm just not really remembering correctly, but I'm glad they're finally here. At the very edge of the bed, I also have these Canterbury bells that are going to be opening up very, very soon. I planted these last year and transplanted them in the fall. They've overwintered, and I'm just really excited to see them. I've never grown Canterbury bells before, but they're supposed to have these like really pretty like bell-shaped flowers. Obviously, you can probably guess from their name, but yeah, I always really love flowers that have like long spikes and lots of kind of like bell-shaped flowers, kind of like foxgloves. I love foxgloves, so yeah, I'm just really excited to see those bloom, and it looks like it's going to be happening very soon. In front of the peas, I also transplanted in some chamomile down there. And in these pots over here, I have actually something that's pretty fun and exciting. I kind of just popped these in as an experiment. So these are persimmon seedlings. Last year, Aaron and I did a lot of persimmon foraging in our neighborhood, and it was so much fun. Like, Aaron loved it so much, and he really, really loved the wild persimmons. So after we were done eating them, I saved all the seeds and I just like threw them in this pot, and I did that in the late fall, early winter, and they've been sitting in this pot all winter, and they've just started to sprout, and we have all of these little tiny persimmon seedlings. These are the wild persimmons, so they're very different from like cultivated persimmons that you would get at the supermarket. They're a lot smaller and they have these big seeds. I mean, you can probably see from this seed cap here, but they have these big seeds that you have to eat around. So they're not really my favorite, but Aaron did really enjoy them. So I thought it would be really fun if we could try and grow these and place them all around our property. I believe this type of persimmon is native to the US. So I had a feeling that they would just grow really easily, and it seems like they germinated really well. I mean, I don't know how big they're gonna get in the first year or like how long it's gonna take before we get fruit, but I figured I might as well give it a shot, and it's pretty cool to see that they all grew. So at some point I'm gonna have to move these to individual pots and let them grow a little bit bigger, and then we'll probably plant them around the property, so that'll be really fun. We foraged in 2 different areas and the persimmons were just like slightly different. I don't know if it was actually different or if it was just the soil in the area made them taste differently, but yeah, I did these 2 different batches from the 2 different areas, so it's just kind of fun that we were able to forage that, and we'll see what becomes of these seedlings. In the next little bit, I have some herbs here. I have some garlic chives and some thyme. I also have some volunteer sunflowers coming up, which is great. Looks like I have lots of sunflowers actually, so I don't even know if I'm gonna need to plant any this year. I think they're just gonna come up on their own because we've planted sunflowers for so many years now. On this trellis, I had planted some tomatillos, but 2 out of my 3 plants died. Actually, this is the remnants of one of them, and I just saw some, it looked like potato beetles running away under there. Here. Yeah, anyway, this guy did not fare too well. And then I just had this one surviving plant. It might be 2 plants actually, which would be nice because I believe tomatillos, you do need 2 plants to get anything, but they're just not really looking very great, so I don't have high hopes for them. I'm gonna have to probably put something in as a replacement for this trellis because I don't want any trellising space to go to waste. In front of that, I had also planted in some, I believe, white hailstone radishes, but you can probably see they're going to seed, so I have to pull these out. Yeah, that one did not form a radish, and it's going to seed, so I've got to clean these out, and looks like we have flea beetles on them too. So yeah, not the most successful area, but actually, okay, that's a pretty good radish. So yeah, I'll probably just go ahead and pull all of them out now and see what's going on. That's another really big one. All right, so not bad. I got like 3 really nice big radishes. So I'll leave these here for now and come back for them. Now we're in the back part of the garden, and I'm gonna start in my broccoli / zucchini row. As many of you know, I'm sure, this used to be all broccoli and cabbage and cauliflower and all sorts of brassicas, but now it's been kind of split with zucchini. But in this front area, I do have lots of broccoli and I think cauliflower. This is like my main surviving broccoli that I started from seed that made it through the brassica, and it is the biggest one out of all of these plants. So I'm pretty proud of that one, and I'm glad that I had one survivor. A lot of these other ones are transplants from a local nursery, but they're still growing, they're still looking good, so I'm glad that they survived. I've been keeping these covered so you can see these leaves look really, really nice. No like caterpillar damage at all or flea beetles, which is great, and they have not started to form the broccoli heads yet, but I think that will be coming very soon. These are some of my other surviving plants where the main stem had been eaten and they formed these side shoots, and I'm not sure if the side shoots will get big enough really to do anything, but I've just left them just to see if we can get anything. Worst comes to worst, we can eat these leaves, or I can give them to the chickens because the chickens also like them. So I'm just letting these grow until I will need to take them out, like if I need the space for something. Like maybe when these zucchini plants get too large, you can see I've got 2 of them here that we have direct sowed in that have come up now. And since this row has been covered, they are going to be safe, at least for the beginning, from squash bugs and vine borers, which is kind of like the only way we can grow zucchini. But then once these start flowering, I will have to take the covers off to make sure that the flowers get pollinated. But for now, they're being covered, and they do great with that in the very beginning. I've got a couple more summer squash plants coming up here. And then in the very back, I have these cabbage transplants from the nursery. They're still a little bit on the small side. I feel like they need to be bigger for them to develop like ahead of cabbage at this point, because it's going to start warming up really soon around here. But we'll just see what happens and see if they can form some heads. And then these two cabbages back there, these are the ones that I started, and these are Chinese cabbage plants. They are looking very nice and big. Some of the outer leaves have flea beetle and maybe slug damage, but it does look like they're growing pretty quickly now, so hopefully they can form the heads soon. And I'll probably be harvesting those pretty soon. Whether or not they form a head, I mean, you can still eat the leaves. It's nice if they can form a nice, like, tight head, but even if not, you can still eat the leaves and they're still good. In the next row, this is where I have planted my peppers very recently, and those seem to be doing very well. If you missed that video, I am using like a new way to support my peppers this year that I'm trying out. So I've put in these T-posts and I added some flower netting horizontally so the peppers can grow up through them. And hopefully this will support the developing fruit so that the stems don't break on my pepper plants. So that's what pretty much like 2/3 of this bed is. I've got a couple of random flowers just to fill in the space back here. And then in the very back is where I have all my onions, which are looking very nice. Back there we've got a little sneak peek at some developments on the homestead. Still not going to talk too much about it right now, but this is what Erin has been working on building. Then in the last row on this side, this is our asparagus row, and we also have lots of strawberries in here as well. And we are well into the season for both of these things. We actually did not harvest yesterday, so I know that we have lots to pick here today. And I've been keeping my strawberries covered to protect them from the squirrels and birds, which has been working out very nicely. And yeah, we've definitely got some strawberries to pick here. So after I finish filming, I'm gonna come harvest all of these guys. You can see there's more here. Then I also have lots of asparagus to pick too. You can see these are two really nice ones. So yeah, really happy to see that everything's doing well. So glad I made the decision to cover the strawberries because we've already gotten just like so many. Whereas this time last year, I feel like we were just losing all our strawberries and it was very upsetting. But we've just got so many perfect looking strawberries. I've been making a lot of chocolate covered strawberries, so you kind of really need very nice, perfect strawberries to do that. Oh, it does look like this one got eaten. So that one's gonna go to the chickens. But for the most part, the covering has been working very well. The other side of this back garden is also a lot more full than when I showed it last month. I think almost every bed has been planted up at this point. Some of it has not come up yet, but I think there are seeds in every bed. So in this first bed here, I've planted in all of my eggplants. I have two different varieties. I have like a longer Asian eggplant on this side. On the other side, I have kind of like a fairy tale looking eggplant that's like a really pretty stripy white and light purple one. I'm so excited to see if those do well. I have been covering this row because we do get very bad flea beetles. Actually, I can already see they've gotten through and have started eating this leaf. This is what will happen if you have flea beetles. It'll kind of look like all these tiny little holes in your leaves, and this can very quickly kill a young plant. So yeah, I find it really helpful to cover my eggplant seedlings in the beginning. Until they like start flowering or get really tall, I'll take the covers off, and by that point, hopefully, you know, they'll be big enough. Just killed a flea beetle right there. Hopefully, but at that point, they'll be big enough that they can take the damage a little bit better. But when you first planted them in and they're like still kind of small, if I get too big of an infestation, I will just lose all my eggplants. So that's why I keep them covered. And also in between my eggplants, I've also sowed some peanuts. So like here and here, I've sowed peanuts. And this is the same thing I did last year. I think green beans would also work well if they're bush beans. It just works really well to fill in the space in between the eggplants. The peanuts especially are nice because they really like sprawl on the ground. They don't really grow upwards, so they kind of just fill in the spaces all around the stems of the eggplants. It's kind of like a living mulch. They're also good for fixing nitrogen in the soil to provide nutrients for the eggplants. Last year it worked really well, so I'm just doing it again this year. And yeah, those have just been transplanted in, I think like maybe 2 or 3 days ago. So fingers crossed that those do not get infested with flea beetles. In the next row, in the very front here, I've put in a replacement artichoke since my ones from last year did not make it, sadly, over the winter. I'm hoping this one survives. I feel like it probably won't flower and fruit this year, but hopefully it'll make it through the winter, and next year we'll get artichokes. We'll just see how it goes. And then I have this simple T-post and flower netting trellis system here for my drying beans. I have 2 different varieties. They're like very beautiful heirloom drying beans. I don't know if I can remember the names. I'll put them up on the screen here. Although it does kind of look like something is eating the leaves of my bean plants. So not great, but beans do grow really quickly, so hopefully they'll grow faster than whatever's eating them can eat them. But yeah, I've just got the 2 different sections. Each one has a different type of drying bean. In the next bed, for this section that looks pretty empty right now, I've seeded in some okra that has not come up yet. And then on the other side, we've got another area of potatoes that have grown a lot since last time. The next 2 rows have the bulk of our tomato plants, and we have 2 different kind of like trellising systems for them. For our indeterminate tomatoes, we have these T-posts with PVC pipe up top, and we have to tie the tomatoes at the base and kind of like twirl the tomato plants around the string that will be tied to the top of this PVC piping over here as they grow. I still have not done that. I do need to do that very soon because these tomatoes are growing pretty quickly and they're gonna need to be tied very soon. So hopefully that will make more sense once I get that done. But I did also do this last year, so if you've watched any garden tours from last year, you'll probably have seen this system already. And then in the next bed, we have a very simple T-post with a cattle panel run down, and I'm going to weave the tomato plants in and out of the panels as they grow. This row is all of our determinate tomatoes. They're pretty much all like plum and paste type tomatoes, and then the other row has a lot of our indeterminate heirloom tomatoes that usually grow very tall. The tomatoes have already grown so much since we've planted them, and I think that was only like 2 weeks ago. I feel like they've already grown at least a good like 8 inches, so they're looking really good. Yeah, I just need to come out and do a little bit of maintenance, tying these guys up, making sure the lower leaves are pruned off if they're starting to get yellow. And then I've got just 2 more beds back here. The very back one I need to like clean up and kind of prep, so nothing is really planted in there, except I did put my lemongrass plant right at the edge over there, but other than that, not much is going on. I still have to take care of that. But in the second to last bed, this is a lot of my bush beans. I also have some edamame at the end that I'll show you. But yeah, mostly I've just planted in lots of bush beans here. Some of them have been eaten by slugs. Like this one is hanging on, but this one is kind of gone. So for the ones that have been eaten, I'm kind of just like coming out here and reseeding them if it looks like they're not going to make it. I do also have a celery plant from last year. I don't know what happened, but it looks like it's going to seed. So yeah, I need to take this out. But then in the other end, I have my other variety of edamame plants that I'm growing here, which have also come up. I think this is the newer variety of edamame that I haven't tried yet. So I'm excited to see how that does. And then at the very end, I've got a rhubarb plant that I started from seed last year and transplanted in the fall. I have not harvested any of this yet because it doesn't really seem to be getting any bigger. It's kind of just been this size for the past month or so, and I've never grown rhubarb before, so I'm not really sure like at what point you should harvest it, but I feel like the stems should be longer than this before you harvest it. So if you've grown rhubarb before, let me know. Like, does it ever get bigger than this? Is it just because it's in the first year that it's just staying this size? yeah, so I haven't harvested from it, but it's nice to see that it at least survived the winter since my artichokes didn't. So that brings us to the end of this month's garden tour. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you're subscribed to see our future garden tour videos for the year. I'm going to be doing these once a month, and we also post a lot of other content about gardening, harvesting our vegetables, and also how we use them and preserve them. So make sure you're subscribed and turn on your notification bell if you want to see more of that stuff. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you again in the next one.